Most people spend their lives complaining about the boulders in their way, never realizing that the gold they're looking for is hidden directly underneath them. Are you waiting for someone else to clear your path, or are you brave enough to start pushing? In a world where everyone complains about the wind, very few people actually stop to build a windmill. We live in a culture that has become addicted to the comfort of the excuse. We look at our bank accounts, our broken relationships, or our stalled careers, and we instinctively point our fingers outward. We blame the economy, we blame our upbringing, we blame our bosses, and we blame luck. We have become experts at describing the size of the rock. But we have become cowards when it comes to laying a single finger on it. But today, this story will permanently shift the way you look at every struggle, every hardship, and every mountain in your way. Once, in a kingdom nestled between vast, jagged mountains and golden, rolling fields, there lived a king who was known for his immense wisdom and his strange way of teaching his subjects. He believed that a kingdom was only as strong as the character of its people. He didn't just give speeches from a balcony, he created tests in the streets to see the true nature of the men and women he ruled. One chilly autumn night, while the city slept under a blanket of silver moonlight and the only sound was the rustle of dry leaves, the king called his most trusted guards. Together, they hauled a massive, jagged boulder from the mountainside and placed it directly in the center of the main trade road, the only path leading into the heart of the capital city. It was a giant of a stone, so heavy that it seemed like a natural part of the earth itself. Once the task was done, the king commanded his guards to return to the palace, while he himself hid behind a dense cluster of ancient oak trees nearby. He wanted to see who among his people possessed the spirit of a conqueror, who possessed the tongue of a victim. As the sun began to peek over the horizon, casting long, orange shadows across the road, the first travelers arrived. These were the wealthy merchants of the kingdom, men dressed in the finest silks and riding in polished carriages pulled by groomed horses. Their wagons were filled with rare spices and gold, yet when they saw the boulder, their faces twisted in disgust. Instead of stepping down to see if they could move it, or even calling for their servants to help, they sat in their velvet seats and began to shout at the sky. They cursed the king's administration for its incompetence. They complained about the high taxes they paid, arguing that for such a price, the roads should be paved in silver, not blocked by common granite. They spent an hour arguing with each other about whose fault it was, and eventually, they turned their expensive carriages around, taking a bumpy, 3-hour detour just to avoid the effort of the obstacle. They chose the long path of convenience over the short path of effort, and in doing so, they missed the opportunity hidden in plain sight. A few hours later, a group of local officials and scholars approached. These were the thinkers and the intellectuals of the town. They gathered around the rock with their clipboards and pens. They measured its height and width. They debated the geological origins of the stone, wondering if it had fallen from the cliff or been placed there by an enemy. They wrote long, complicated reports about how the boulder was a systemic failure of the kingdom's infrastructure and how it represented a decline in public safety. They stood there for half the day, nodding their heads and looking very serious, but not one of them so much as tucked their robes in to try and push. To them, the rock was a topic of conversation, a problem to be analyzed, but not a call to action. They were brilliant at explaining why they were stuck, but useless at moving forward. They looked for complexity where only simple, raw effort was required. By late afternoon, the air grew cold, and a large, frustrated crowd had gathered at the edge of the road, all of them echoing the same bitter complaints. Everyone felt like a victim of the rock. Then, walking slowly down the dusty path, came a lone peasant. He was a simple man, a vegetable seller who had spent 14 hours working in the sun-drenched fields. His back was bowed under the weight of a massive wooden crate filled with heavy greens. His hands were calloused and stained with soil, and his feet were tired from miles of walking. When he reached the crowd, he didn't stop to join in the complaining. He simply looked at the boulder and then at the setting sun. He knew that if the road stayed blocked, the people in the next village would go hungry, and his day's work would be wasted. The peasant set his heavy crate down. He walked up to the massive stone and placed his bare, dirt-stained hands against its rough, cold surface. The crowd went silent, watching him with smirks and mocking whispers. One merchant laughed and told him he was wasting his strength. But the peasant didn't listen. He took a deep, shaky breath, planted his feet firmly in the mud, and pushed. At first, the boulder didn't move an inch. His muscles screamed in protest, and sweat poured down his face. He grunted, his face turning a deep shade of red. He slipped and fell to his knees twice. But each time he got back up. He adjusted his position, found a better grip, and gave one final, agonizing heave. With a deafening groan, the boulder finally rolled into the ditch. As the peasant turned to pick up his vegetables, he noticed something reflecting the light of the dying sun. In the very spot where the boulder had sat for hours, there was a small, hand-stitched leather purse. He knelt down and opened it. His breath caught in his throat. Inside were dozens of heavy gold coins. More money than his family would earn in 10 generations. And tucked among the gold was a small piece of parchment with the king's royal seal. It read, "Every obstacle contains a hidden prize for the one who stops complaining and starts pushing." While others see a wall, the brave see a staircase. This story is a mirror for your own life. Right now, there is a boulder in your path. Maybe it's a financial debt, a difficult exam, or a fear of failure. You have two choices. You can be like the merchants, the people who spend their energy complaining on social media and blaming the world. Or, you can be the traveler. You can accept that the obstacle is not there to stop you, but to test you and prepare you for a greater destiny. The weight you are pushing against is exactly what is building the spiritual and mental muscle you need for the next level. The gold you are searching for is buried directly under the heaviest burden you are currently carrying. If you avoid the struggle, you avoid the reward. Look around at the people who are winning. They aren't the ones with fewer problems, they are the ones who stopped talking about their problems and started working on them. Every time you face a challenge, you are standing in front of a hidden purse of gold. Most people walk away because the rock looks too heavy, but the few who stay, the few who push until their hands bleed, are the ones who inherit the kingdom. You were not born to stand in a crowd of complainers. You were born to move the stone. The world is full of people waiting for the road to be cleared, but the road is only cleared by those willing to get their hands dirty. Every drop of sweat is an investment in your future self. Do not resent the struggle. The peasant was wealthy not just because of the coins, but because he was the only man in the kingdom with the strength to roll the stone. He carried a grit that the merchants could never buy. When you decide to stop complaining, your eyes begin to see things that others miss. While the crowd was busy pointing at the rock, the peasant was looking for a foothold. This is the secret of the greats. They don't have a life without boulders, they simply have a heart that is bigger than any rock. If you are ready to stop being a victim and start being the architect of your own destiny, make a promise to yourself today. Don't let the fear of the weight keep you paralyzed. You are stronger than the stone. If this message is what you needed, and you are ready to move the boulders in your life, type, "I will move it," in the comments right now. We read every comment and support your journey toward power and purpose. If this story gave you a spark, hit the like button and share it with someone who feels like giving up. Subscribe to Wisdom Path Tale for more stories that clear the mind and heal the heart. Your journey to the gold starts with the very first push. Thank you for watching, and remember, the obstacle is the way.